Yes, good morning all. I'll be continuing with the database connectivity chapter. Last class we discussed about what is called as drivers and what is called as driver managers. Today I'll be going through the different steps that are involved in connecting to a database, querying a database, or querying the table available in the database. Okay. So first of all of you guys maintain one piece of paper with you, paper and a pen, so that you can write down the steps. And when I show you the program, it will be much convenient to you to match with the steps that I have discussed. Okay. So please have a paper and a pen with you. And let me share the screen. So just 1 minute. Let me minimize the things. Yeah. So I will be going through different steps in connecting and querying the database in Java. So I have something called as driver and something called as driver manager. Okay. In the previous class, I did mention that there is something called as driver who mainly focuses on how do I manage the data or how do I store the data in the proper manner. So even examples for drivers, you have MySQL, you have Oracle, you have SQL, you have MS SQL. Okay, so many drivers are there, and to have the connectivity between the driver and the user, there is somebody called as driver manager. Okay, I request you please don't read the things that are available in front of you, because unless and until I explain it, you will not understand it. Okay, so Java is a collection of n number of classes that you know already. There is something called as class class by name class. Okay, it is available as part of language specific libraries. So java.lang. Okay, java.lang supports one special class called as class, similar to a special object class called as object. I have a special class called class, which mainly is used for loading the relevant or required class that is needed at that point in time. Okay, this class has many things associated with it. Okay, and there is a special function in this class which is called as for name. This for name, it is always used along with class
This class, which is called as
yeah,
for
who is
name,
speaking?
this for name, it is always used along with class.
Ajay, can you mute please? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so there is a special function called as for name. It is always used with the object of the class. Okay, normally we call it by class dot for name. This is mainly used for telling that, okay, what is the name of the class or the driver that you want to include in this file. Okay, so in the current scenario, see, you can include any class that is available, the class that is available as part of the packages that are there in the Java. Among them, right now, my specific connection for this class is to load which driver you want. Okay, to have the loading of the proper driver, I use this combination class dot for name. Now, how this class dot for name is useful? It mainly loads the class, and for example, I have written an example here in this line of code. I have written class dot for name. Actually, this has to be in double quotes. I'm sorry, I have not missed those double quotes. Okay.
Excuse me,
Uh,
ma'am.
yeah.
Ma'am,
Yes.
your voice is breaking.
Okay. Can I stop my video? Okay. Now it is audible properly.
Ma'am, your voice is breaking.
What about now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have stopped my video for the convenience of the data. Okay, now it is okay. Can I go ahead now? Is it okay now?
Yes, ma'am. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll just unlock the meeting and then continue. Please give me 1 minute time. Okay. Now is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, in this example, in this line of code, what I have written is, actually this has to be in double quotes. Please pardon me, I have missed those double quotes. Class dot for name in bracket, whatever the class that you want to load, that you have to load. Okay. Here I have taken an example of MySQL. I've taken an example of MySQL. See, if you want the driver of Oracle, it has its own class name. Okay. If you want the driver of MS SQL, it has its own class name. If you want the driver of normal SQL, it has its own class name. So the relevant class name has to be passed as part of the parameter for this for name function of the class. Okay. So once you have called this, what this class does is it just simply loads the class that you want, okay, and it just returns an object of the class. It returns an object of the class. Normally we write it like this: class dot for name. If please all of you take down this class dot for name in bracket. Right now I have taken MySQL example. So take this MySQL example itself. Okay. com.mysql.jdbc.driver. Write all of them in double quotes. So this loads the class for the driver MySQL for the JDBC connection. Okay. Continue that. You have written class dot for name in bracket double quotes com.mysql.jdbc.driver double quotes complete bracket close. Write throws class not found exception. So I have written it here. Throws class not found exception. If the class given inside the double quotes is not valid, it has to throw the class not found exception. Otherwise, there will be abrupt ending of the program. So always this class dot for name is used with throws class not found exception. Is this clear? All of you have written it? Let me know please.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So next, once you have done this, it returns what is called as an object of the class. Okay. So it returns an object. So hold that object and using that object which has been returned by class dot for name, I will go ahead in calling what is called as driver manager. Okay. You please remember, first thing the steps goes like this. First thing, you have to load the driver that you want. Once you have loaded the driver, call the get connection method. Call the driver manager. Okay, using the driver manager, get connected to the relevant database. Third step is, once you have connected to the relevant database, you need to query the particular table that from which you want the data. Okay, this is how the things go on. So we are done with the first step. What is that first step? I have loaded the class of the driver which I am right now using. I hope I'm clear with this. Okay. So how do you load the driver that you want? You will load the driver that you want using class.forName. Okay. So class.forName returns an object. That object I'm using to have driver manager called. Okay. I hope my first step is clear for you as you mentioned. Let me go ahead with second step, which calls the driver manager. Okay. So the second step goes like this. First, what I have done, I have loaded the driver. Okay. I have loaded the driver. Now the driver has to have the connection to the querying object. Okay, so there is somebody called as driver manager who is sitting between the driver and the person who is interacting. Here the person who is interacting is the program or the interface through which you are calling the function. Okay, so there is somebody called as driver manager which helps me to get connected to the particular database available in the driver that I have loaded. I'll repeat. There is somebody called as driver manager who manages to establish a connection between the database. It manages to establish the connection to the database with which I want to query. Okay, so driver manager has many things available. It has many things available. It has mainly four important functionalities. Please pay attention towards this, then I will go through the slide. Driver manager has four different functionalities that are so important to carry on any kind of programming in Java. It has specifically two important functions. One is to register the driver. Second is to unregister the driver. Okay, this register and unregister, they normally I will never be using that. Okay, as a programmer, I will never be using that because registration has to be done by the administrator. Okay, once the driver I know with which I want to query, I have to register that driver to my application. That is done by driver manager. Suppose by mistake I have registered my application to somebody else, to a different driver, you are allowed to have unregister option. Okay, so that unregister option is also provided by who is called as driver manager. Other than these two, I have something called as getting connected to the database, and fourth one called as closing the connection to the database. I'll repeat. The four important functionalities provided by driver manager are: first one, to register a driver to the application. Second, to unregister the driver which is not required for the application. Third, once you have registered, you have the option of getting connected to the database available in the driver so that I can query the data that is available as part of the database. Fourth one, you are allowed to have the closing of the connection to the driver. Okay, so four functionalities provided by the driver manager. I'll repeat: register the driver, unregister the driver, get connected to the database available in the driver, then fourth one, close the connection to the database. Then I have a question for you. How a driver is different from a database? Can anybody comment? How a driver is different from a database? See, are you knowing the difference between a driver and a database? If not, I will explain. Anyone? Yes, Iranna? I think I'm unable to hear you, Iranna. You just can comment in the chat. Okay, Somshekhar has commented, driver is just a mediator between programmer and the database. See, I would tell Somshekhar, your answer is correct. Actually, driver manager is the mediator between programmer and database. Okay, driver is a collection of multiple databases. Okay, it is somebody who stores all varieties of data at one place. For example, I'll give you an instance. Suppose I'm maintaining a database of students. I'm maintaining a database of employees of STM. I'm maintaining a database of non-teaching staff of the SDM. I'm maintaining a database of hostel people. I'm maintaining a database of the people who have voted, who have not voted. Okay. Each of these have their own bulkier amount of data associated. So how many databases I have? 5 different databases. Driver is a collection of all these 5 databases. At one place, I can find that, okay, there is a file by name this, there is a file by name this, there is a file by name this. I can call driver as a bigger folder. A bigger folder. Each database is a subfolder. Each table can be called as a file contained in the subfolder, and subfolder is part of the main driver. Okay, so driver manager, it manages to connect the query that I'm supplying from the user, to connect the query that I'm supplying from the user to the database contained inside the driver. What is a driver? Driver is a huge collection of multiple databases. It can be taken as a root folder. Inside the root folder, there may be n number of subfolders. Each subfolder acts as one database. And inside each subfolder, there may be n number of tables. Each of the table may have its own tuples or its own set of data. Okay, for example, if I take the computer science department, CS department, when I take, CS department has student database. CS department has teacher database. Under student database may contain two different tables. Student details, that is personal details, and the academic details. Okay, so even the teacher has personal details and relevant official details. So these two at end, they are nothing but the tables contained inside student database. These two are considered as the tables contained inside the teacher database. Student database, teacher database, both of them are available in the driver. Okay, this is how a driver is looked at. Driver is a collection of multiple databases, and each database is a collection of multiple tables. I hope this is clear for you. So who is driver manager? Driver manager sits in between this database and the query that is coming in from the user. So driver manager supplies this query, processes this query, supplies it to the driver and fetches the data that is required and gives it back to the user who has created the statement or the query. Okay, this is how the driver manager will come into picture. Now, the part that is more important for me as part of driver manager is the function called as get connection. Because driver manager manages to have 4 functionalities. First, to register the driver. Second, to unregister the driver. Third, to get connected to the relevant database of the driver. Fourth, to get disconnected from the database to which I have connected. So among them, the first one and the second one are specifically useful at the administrator level. We as a programmer need not have the worry of registering or unregistering the driver that is required. So right now, we will concentrate on getting connected to the driver that is already available. Okay, so what is the thing that we have done in step 1? In step 1, we have created or we have loaded the driver with which I want to have the query established. Okay, once I have done that, I will go for getting connected to the relevant database because driver has n number of databases. Among them, to which database you want to get connected, that is given by what is called as get connection method. How do I call it? The class driver manager dot get connection. In bracket, the name of the database with which the URL with which you want to connect to the driver. I call it as database driver URL. Okay. Then I have what is called as the username and the password. Have you used Oracle database? Please let me know. In your DBMS. Used your Oracle database? Yes. Has it asked for username and password? When you try to double click on it, when you try to open it, it will ask for username and password if you have installed it with username and password. Okay, normally it will ask for the username and the password. That username, if you have provided, only then you are supplying it. Otherwise, both of these username and password will go blank. How do you write the blank string? I will write the blank string as double quote, opening double quote, closing double quote. That is null string. If you have not supplied any username and password, then definitely you can pass it as a okay. Prarthana has a question here. Can we connect as admin also like this? No, you don't have a permission here because you are not the admin of Oracle database that you are using. You are not the admin of MySQL database that you are using. Already those drivers are created and they are available for you. So your task is only to get connected to that, nothing else other than that. Prarthana, I think I have answered your question. Okay. Then, so once you have got connected to the particular database URL, okay, this get connection method. Oh, I have given an example in the next line. Look at this. It returns a connection object. It returns a connection object. That's why I have written connection con equal to. Okay. Driver manager dot get connection in bracket. This is the URL for the MySQL. This is the URL for the MySQL. So if you are using Oracle, it has its own URL. Default URLs are there. Whichever driver you are using, that driver's URL you are supposed to supply here. Okay. Look, the URL goes like this: jdbc colon mysql colon. That's it. Whatever that I'm writing afterwards, it talks the location from where you want to extract the database. Okay. So your URL goes only like this: jdbc colon mysql colon. That's it. But whatever further things I have written, it specifies from where I have to get connected to the database that I require. Localhost specifies in my current machine, I don't want anything to be extracted from the website. In my local machine, I have my own database driver. In that database driver, I want to get connected to the database that I'm supplying after the slash. So the URL goes jdbc colon mysql colon. Afterwards, double slash localhost, it specifies the location into which the database is available. Normally, when you are doing your programming in the same machine where the data is available, we write it as localhost. Otherwise, the name of the web space where you have loaded your database, that name of the web space has to be given here. Okay, if you have bought space for your data, normally we have to buy database server. Okay, that database server, once you have got, it will have its own name, server name. That server name you have to supply if you want to have the proper location of the database. Since I have not got any of my personal web server, I have given localhost because my all data is available as part of the same machine. Okay. So this will never work for a website. If you want to work it for website name with which you have registered by paying money, that website name has to be supplied as part of the URL here. I hope this is clear for you. Localhost is given for the sake that I am not buying any space online. Okay. Localhost slash. After the slash, I'll be giving the name of the database with which I want to get connected. Okay. For instance, I have given the username as root and password as root. If you don't have any username and password, you can very well keep them as blank. Okay. So this returns a connection object. What for this is useful? Connection object is useful for querying the table contained in AOOP-DB. AOOP-DB is one database that is available as part of DB Okay. Then the third step. Once I hope all of you are writing down the steps. Please write down the steps, otherwise it will be confusing for you. Okay, write down this step, this line of code, and write down this line of code. I think I have dictated the first line. This line of code, all of you write down. Connection con equal to driver manager dot get connection in bracket double quotes JDBC colon MySQL colon 2 forward slashes localhost slash name of the database. BookDB is one instance I have taken, comma, double quotes username, double quotes complete, comma, double quotes password, double quotes complete, bracket close, semicolon. Okay. So I'll proceed to the third step. Step 3. What is that done in the second step? I have got myself connected to the database available in the proper URL using the username and password. Okay. Now that has generated a connection object. What is my task? I have got connected to the database. Next task is to ask the question. Okay, whatever data I want, I have to ask that question. How many okay, before I proceed, please let me know whether SQL has been started in your DBMS or not. Started. Do you know insert query, select query, then update query?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
okay, yeah. So in accordance to that, you have 4 different options. Basically, you have 2 things that need to be done on a database. First, you fetch the data or you load the data. Only 2 options are there. Either you are fetching the data or you are loading the data. When you are fetching the data, it is merely reading. When you are loading the data, loading can be of very varieties. You are updating the existing data or you are deleting the data and loading the new data. Okay, so the things go very differently. Whenever you want to do any of these queries in SQL, any of these queries, example, insert, select, delete, update, any of these queries require what is called as an object of the statement class, which is called as statement stmt. This object name can be anything. Okay, there is a class called statement which supports what is called as execute query or execute update. Execute query is mainly for fetching the data. Execute update is to load the data. Please remember these two. The 2 things that you can do on any data is either you fetch the data or you update the data or you load the data. Update can be delete, actually update, or remove something and load something. Okay, so in doing any of these queries of SQL, you have a special class in Java which is called as statement class. This statement class has to call a function available in itself called as create statement. There is something else also called as prepared statement. I'll repeat, create statement or prepared statement. You have to call either of these 2 functions with reference to the connection object that you have created in the second step. This generates one statement object. Okay, look, first step I have done. What? Class.forName I have called to load the proper driver. Second step, I have called get connection method available in DriverManager using the URL and the username and the password. I have got connected myself to the database that is required to query. Okay, then my third step is I will prepare myself to create a SQL statement and then I will call the next step. What is that third step? I have to create a statement object with which I will create the query. How do I create the statement object? Using the previous steps connection object, call the create statement method or prepared statement method. Now this returns me one important handler or object of the statement class. That object I'll be using in step 4. Up to step 3 it is clear or any doubt? Please write down this statement. Write down this statement. Any doubt up to step 3? Comment quickly. Any doubt up to step 3? No. Okay. Okay. Now my step 4 goes like this. What step 3 has resulted into? Step 3 has resulted into statement object. Using this statement object, I'll call either execute query or execute update. Execute query is helpful for fetching the data. Execute update is to update the database with the new data. Okay. So example I have done it here. Statement dot execute query. Look at the connection between the third step and the fourth step. Look at the connection between the second step, third step and the second step. Third step is using con object which is created in step 2. Fourth step is using statement object which is created in step 3. Okay. Using STMT that got generated in step 3, I'll use right now execute query and pass it with a query called select star from book info. This indicates what? This indicates what? The query select query, insert query, update query or delete query, whatever queries are there, those are to be supplied as the parameters for execute query or execute update. Okay. And when I talk about execute query, it returns what is called as a result set object. Please remember guys, the steps goes like this. Load the driver, get connected with the database available in the driver. Third, to create the statement or to prepare yourself for the statement so that you can handle the query that comes in. Step 4 is call the query on the table available in the database that generates what is called as result set. See, this result set is as good as a metadata. What this metadata contains? See, result set, it is not a simple thing that is available. Simple thing if you talk about whenever a function returns either one value or two values. This result set here, it is the whole set of data maintained as table. It is a complex thing. It is not a simple thing. It's a complex thing. So this execute query returns what is called as RS or result set object. So please all of you write, all of you take down result set space object RS equal to statement, that is STMT, the object that is created in step 3, dot execute query bracket double quotes select star from the name of the table, double quotes complete, bracket close, semicolon. Okay, all of you are taken down. So how do you need to write? Result set, it is available here, space rs equal to stmt.execute query of double quotes select star from book info. I have taken one instance. Okay, now I have got the result in result set object. I have to print that because what is the task of select star from? It has to print all the data in the table format. Okay, so how do I print it? Convert the resultant into the printable rows. So for doing this, there are multiple alternatives. One among them I have taken for now is get metadata. Okay, and this is associated with what is called as get object. Using the combination of get metadata and get object, I will print the data that is available in the table from which I have extracted. Using what query? Select star from. So step 5 is to print the data that I have extracted. Okay, since I have taken select star from as an example, for the first example, the get metadata will come into picture. What about others? Update, delete, Do I print anything? I don't print anything there. I don't print anything. So I will take an example of update and delete, as well as update, delete, then grant permissions, all those things afterwards. Now, since I'm talking about only select star from, step 5 comes. Otherwise, step 5 will not come in every instance. Okay. So my steps go like this. Please go ahead with the steps. All of you have written or not, please check it out. First thing that I will do, class.forName in double quotes, com.mysql.jdbc.driver, double quotes complete, bracket close, throws class not found exception. Second step, using the driver manager, driver manager.get connection of DB URL. That is, the URL goes like this for the MySQL, jdbc colon mysql colon / localhost / the name of the database, double quotes complete, comma, within pair of double quotes, username, comma, the password. This returns a connection object. Okay. Next, using the connection object, call the create statement or prepared statement, which returns a statement object. Using the statement object, pass the query that you want to pass. This is called as SQL statement. That's why there is a class by name statement. SQL statement can be passed as part of either execute query or execute update. Execute query is useful for select queries. Execute update is useful for granting the permission, updating the data, or deleting the data. Or there is something called as truncation. Okay. In doing any of them, execute update is useful. Execute query or execute update will return what is called as result set object. And in both the types of the queries, result set will be managed in different manner. Since I have taken select query as an example, the current example requires what is called as get metadata and get object for printing each and every row of the table that is contained in the table with which I have queried. Okay. Whether the steps are clear, so that I can go for one example related. Steps are clear? Please let me know. Yeah. Okay. According to the steps, you have written down the steps. Please map that to the steps that I'm showing right now. I think I'll be left out with only 5 or 6 minutes. Let me just go through the program very quickly. Okay. I'll be sharing this program to you. Now, in the import statement, I have written all my SQL related packages or SQL related classes. Okay. If you write java.sql.star, it will be okay. Not at all an issue. Okay. Java.sql.star. If you write in the exam, it's more than convenient. Okay. Now, I have taken select query as an example, and I have fixed all these as some constants. Okay. What is that? DB driver I have stored, DB URL I have stored. Okay. These DB driver and URL I have shown already in the slides. The same things I have written here. Okay. com.mysql.jdbc.driver is the driver. Then the DB URL is jdbc colon mysql colon / localhost / the name of the database. Okay. Now what I have done, I have created all these objects. Connection con, statement stmt, result set rs, result set metadata. Okay. All these I have declared, created the objects. Then I'll be putting in try catch block, because all these things may lead to what is called as SQL exception. Fine. So first thing that I'm doing, class.forName with the driver that I have declared initially. Just have a look at this. Okay, for simplicity, I've done this. Then call the driver manager.get connection, pass the DB URL, comma root is the username. For my MySQL which I have installed, I don't have password. That's why I've kept it blank. Okay. Then I have created a statement. Then I have called execute query to pass select star from book info. Then I have created I have converted this RS into RS metadata by doing the result set object, by calling result set object dot get metadata. About this metadata, I will talk in detail in my next class. Okay. Then this metadata will result into column wise heading associated with headings. Okay, column wise listing of the data with the heading, proper heading. So first thing that I will do is how many columns are there that I need to take. Okay, using this metadata object that is created, I'll call what is called as get column count function. It returns an integer which is in terms of the number of columns that are available in that table. It returns that. Now using the simple for loop, I'll print the headings. How do I print the headings? By calling the function get column name. Get column name. Get column name is to print the heading, not the content. Okay, so with whatever heading you have stored, you have created your table, with that heading only the heading will be printed here. After this, my task is to print all the data row by row. Okay, so RS will continue until there is next row available. Next in this result set indicates next row. Okay, rs.next, until I have the next row, I have to repeat. What is that? From first column till the last column, I have to repeat or printing the data contained in that particular column, in that particular row. So always rs will be pointing to 0th row of the table by default. So that is first row of the data table. So until there are rows, I will go on printing each and every column's content. How do I print? By calling get object. By calling get object of I. So what it does? Goes to that column, picks that value, prints. Goes to the next column with what? With I++. So this is how the printing of the data is done. Catch is mainly for SQL exception. Okay, class not found exception. So all these class not found exception and SQL exception can also be part of, see, if you cannot write these things without try catch block. I have mentioned this kind of examples previously also. All these have to be written within try catch block. Okay, since I have not written throws class not exception, that class not found exception also I have included as part of the catch block. Guys, any doubt other than the metadata? Other than the metadata, any other doubt? Is it clear?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, how is the book DB stored, ma'am?
Yes, I'll be showing that to you, Irana, because BookDB is stored as part of my MySQL database driver that I have installed.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. I think probably during my lab session, I'll be showing that to you.